When the 2018 anime was announced, a lot of media and social media pages covered the news, but some of these news were notified as a supposed version that was based on the 2018 World Cup, where, for example, players like Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi would appear. Nowadays, it is pretty evident that this was a fake news to grab people's attention because it was known that from the very beginning this version was supposed to be a remake. But sadly, some people believed in this fake news and got disappointed that the new series will be another remake. To be honest, Captain Tsubasa doesn't have a lot of plot holes, but there are some, like that time in the elementary school arc where we were told that Hyuga's father died a year ago, but later in World Youth it was revealed that he died 3 years before the ES arc, where Hyuga began playing for Meiwa. There's also the time where Soda clearly hits Tsubasa's right foot, but later the injury magically appeared in his left foot, and as a fact, this plot hole was fixed in the 83 anime, putting the injury on the right foot. Or there's the time where in the Germany vs Uruguay match, Pierre says that Schneider finally revealed his fire shot, although he had already used it in the match of Germany vs Canada. And there's also the time in Next Dream where Wakashimasu says that, unlike Hyuga, he managed to win against Tsubasa, although that doesn't make sense because Hyuga already beat him in the first match of Nankatsu vs Meiwa. This is a theory that says that some numbers that are picked in Captain Tsubasa have a special meaning, such is the case of Natureza that utilizes the number 0, since his Japanese surname is Saka-O, which means King of Football, and the 0 represents the letter O, which means King. Or there's also the case of Hyuga in the Reggiana, where he utilizes the number 78, that supposedly represents the kanji of Fierce Tiger, that seems to have a 7 and an 8. There are also the cases of the sums of the digits that form the representative number, which is based on the player Ivan Zamorano. In Captain Tsubasa, these players are: Tsubasa in Sao Paulo uses 37, 3 plus 7 equals 10. In Barcelona he utilizes the 28, 2 plus 8 equals 10. Misaki in Iwata uses the 38, 3 plus 8 equals 11. And Hyuga in Juventus uses the 18, 1 plus 8 equals 9, etc. Have you ever wondered, what is exactly the disease or condition that Misui has in his heart? We know as the main symptoms angina, temporal vision loss, palpitations, fatigue, etc. Some people suggest that he also has arrhythmia, but we are not so sure about that because we have never been shown that Misui has a pacemaker, which is a device that helps regulate the heart rate of patients that usually have arrhythmias. We can also guide ourselves for various informations, like that time in the 56th chapter of the original manga, where we are told that the muscles of Misui's heart used to be weak compared with the growth of his body's muscle. Because of these symptoms and the improvement of his condition, we are not exactly sure if this condition really exists or not. Some fans thought that he may have left ventricular hypertrophy or also cardiomegaly, although some of these are somewhat contradictory with the characteristics of Misui's disease. There's also an article by the Tech Science Press that focuses on Misui's heart disease, although taking into account that they are basing their research on the 1983 anime that has the filler of Misui having a heart operation. In summary, this article explains that Misui has a diffuse condition called congenital angina. I'll put the article in the description if you wanna read it. Captain Tsubasa is a rather inoffensive series, so it doesn't have that much censorship, although in some countries they censored in the animes Roberto's suicide attempt or Roberto and Kira drinking alcohol. There's also the 2023 animes where they quote and unquote censored the fight of Tsubasa vs Kanda, given that in the manga it's a bare-fisted fight, but in the anime it was a boxing sparring. They also censored Tsubasa's overhead kick to Kanda, when in the anime the kick misses him and it is one of the ring's corners. In this same anime, it is unknown, but they also removed Muller's characteristic scar, which is kinda weird because Urabe still has his scar on his forehead. And although I'm not 100% sure if this was censored, but it appears so, there's a scene in Captain Tsubasa J where we see the Tachibana twins passing the ball in a train station, that appears to have been cut in the TV version so that kids don't replicate such the dangerous thing to do, although this scene isn't censored in the DVD versions of the series. For many years, the Captain Tsubasa anime has been in a state that's denominated reboot hell, which is when a product is reimagined multiple times. This is the case in Captain Tsubasa as the original 1983 anime that had their continuation with the Shin OVAs, and later the Honda's Youth movie got rebooted as Captain Tsubasa J, where the story started from scratch. Then later there was the Toro 2002 reboot that started everything from zero again. And later, in 2018, there was yet another reboot beginning from the ES arc. Although for everyone's relief, this denominated reboot hell seems to be ending, because this new Captain Tsubasa series was the first one to receive a second season and continue the story, and some people are expecting a third one. Have you ever wondered, why does the World Youth manga ending feel so rushed? We don't know exactly why, but there are some theories that say that Shueisha decided to cancel the manga ahead of time because of maybe poor popularity that the series had at the moment, or if it was maybe because of some other factors. But they basically decided to make Takahashi hurry and finish the manga as fast as possible. This is why the infamous Japan vs the Netherlands match was reduced to a mere 2 pages. Also, Takahashi explained later that the final against Brazil was supposedly going to be longer, and that much of Tsubasa and Naturesa's duels in the Barcelona vs Real Madrid match were going to be originally in this match. A real shame if you ask me. Trattoria Bere is an Italian restaurant located in Katsushika, Tokyo, the same place where Takahashi grew up and that we have already seen with the statues and the train station with Captain Tsubasa decoration. This restaurant is, in his words, Takahashi's favorite restaurant. Because of this place has a lot of Captain Tsubasa illustrations, including exclusive illustrations created by Takahashi himself, placed or drawn on the walls. The Matsuyama project is a project by the Consadole Sapporo Club initialized in 2017 that seeks developing players from the inferior divisions utilizing the Captain Tsubasa character Hikaru Matsuyama. This project has the official support of Takahashi, where he even draws Matsuyama with their jersey. Also, since the initialization of this project, Matsuyama has become a kind of a second mascot for Consadole Sapporo, selling merchandise and even having the number 36, which is Matsuyama's number in the same club in the manga, reserved exclusively for him. In recent times, it has become quite popular that other mangakas do tributes to others with commemorative drawings for their manga anniversary. Captain Tsubasa is not the exception, having for the 35th anniversary of the series a Schneider drawn by Yugo Kobayashi, author of Aoashi, and a Tsubasa drawn by Motoyuki Tanaka, author of B-Blues. Also for the Shonen Jump 40th anniversary, the artist Yusuke Murata, known for being the artist of One Punch Man and iShield 21, made an illustration of various characters from the magazine, Tsubasa being one of them. And also Takahashi participated in various of these tributes, for example the tribute of Tsukurorin Kenshin of the infamous Nobuhiro Watsuki, where Takahashi drew the main character Kenshin Himura. There's also this drawing of an OC called Soccer Mask, which is a tribute to the Kinnikuman manga. Everybody knows about the anime remakes of Captain Tsubasa, but not all of them know that there exists a manga reboot of the series that began publishing in 2018, drawn by Toda Kunikazu, called Kiss Dream, which is the same name of the elementary school arc that covers said arc. There's also a sequel to this manga called Boy's Dream that is currently publishing, and it narrates the middle school arc. This manga also publishes in video form like you are seeing on screen. Have you ever noticed that some of the characters in the 2018 anime have a specific color for their spikes? For example, Tsubasa has them blue, Misaki has them cyan, Hyuga has them red, Schneider at Hamburg had them white but later had them gold, Diaz had them orange, etc. A really cool detail, but sadly in the second season most of these characters, including Misaki, have them with generic black, which was a bit disappointing. There's also the case of goalkeeper's gloves, where Genso in the first season had them green and yellow, which is a reference to how he had them in the 83 anime. Gino has them red and white, and Mueller has them yellow and green. The Tecmo video games have their own timeline. In the first game, simply called Captain Tsubasa, it tells the same story of the middle school and junior youth arcs, but with some added matches to the latter like matches against England, Poland, Portugal, etc. In the second game, called Captain Tsubasa 2 Super Striker, it continues the story of the first game and also the manga, where we see Tsubasa playing for Sao Paulo. This game is divided in 5 parts. The first one where we use Sao Paulo, the second one is a high school tournament where we control Misaki's Nankatsu, the third one is the Japan Cup where we face against clubs and national teams like Hamburg, Roma, Uruguay and Japan. The fourth one are the qualifiers for the World Youth, and the fifth one is the World Youth itself where we're facing the finals against Brazil. The third game, called Captain Tsubasa 3 Kaiser Challenge, continues the story of the previous game, where we see various Japanese players playing for various clubs around the globe, where in the first part we control these clubs. Later there's a phase of friendly matches from the Japan team with some national teams, and lastly there's the Universal Junior Cup, where we face against various national teams until we reach the final against Germany. The fourth game, called Captain Tsubasa 4 Professional Rivals, has 4 routes. The A route is winning against Vasco da Gama, and then in the Latin American Cup, winning against Mexico with Brazil. This will let us control the Nambu Daidaku of Soda, Nita and Morisaki. Later we will go for the Asian Cup and the World Cup, where we face in the final against the Netherlands. In the B route we have to lose the match of Brazil vs Mexico, which will let us control Sao Paulo in an European tour against clubs of the region. After that you will play the qualifiers and the World Cup itself, where you will face Italy. The C route is unlocked by losing against Vasco da Gama, where you go again in an European tour with Sao Paulo. Later you will play for the Super Japan Cup with the Japan squad of Tsubasa and Nishizaki. After this you will play the World Cup final match against Germany. And lastly there's the D route, which is unlocked by beating Milan in Route C, where we keep playing the Brazilian League, where we afterwards go to play a Club World Cup with Sao Paulo, where you play in the final against Japan. The last game of the series is Captain Tsubasa 5 Asia no Shogo Campione, which argument is Nita playing for Sao Paulo, Tsubasa playing the Italian League with Lecce, then Asian Cup, World Cup, where in the final we face Anita's Campione. This game has a total of 10 complementary scenarios. Some of these are, for example, Hyuga playing in Juventus, Napoleon playing for Nankatsu, Gino Hernandez playing for FC Con, etc. If you had been paying attention, you'll know that some of this timeline is pretty similar to the manga that was released later on, but we will talk about that later. This is basically a critique of Takahashi's way of drawing characters, especially art that was made from World Youth onwards, where he gets criticized for drawing the characters with big bodies, long legs, and tiny heads. In Japan, these big proportions have become somewhat of a meme, even being referenced in Gintama anime, where they do an illusion of the way Takahashi draws humans with such big bodies. There exist a lot of official original characters. For example, in the 1983 anime there's Steve from England or Hefner from Germany. But many of these OCs come from the video games, such as the case of the Tecmo ones that have characters like Arthur Coimbra, Strato, Michael, the Elite Twins, Babington, etc. In the video game Captain Tsubasa J Get Into Tomorrow, there are the characters from the Street Team. Also, in the video game Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions, there are the Americans Blake, Aswan and Ortiz, the ones from Senegal called Sencor and Diallo, and even a goalkeeper for Brazil replacing Salinas called Keisinho. And there's also the now forgotten OCs from Captain Tsubasa Dream Team of the Juvenile Champions that were replaced for Next Dream, that have characters like Jos Hidalgo, Alfredo Di Piazzolla, Fernando Gardel, etc. There's also the now closed video game Captain Tsubasa Zero, that includes female characters that play alongside masculine ones, which is something that never have happened in the Captain Tsubasa game. There have been various voice actors throughout the whole franchise, in animes and video games. Because the animes don't advance in the plot that much, some characters don't have a fixed role, and so in the video games these are voiced by actors that eventually will or still do the voices or get replaced or even voice other characters. Such is the case of the second season of the 2018 anime, where the majority of the actors are from the Rise of New Champions video game. As to the cases of an actor giving voice from one character to another, we have the case of the BA of Santana from the video game Captain Tsubasa Dream Team, where he does the voice of Sano and Taki from the 2018 series. Also in this same series there's a narrator that was originally the voice of Wakashimasu. Or even the case of the BA of Kenzo in the World 2002 and 2018 anime, that in Dream Team he voices Salinas. Throughout the years, the manga had many surveys, mostly for picking the reader's favorite characters. For example, there's one in the special manga of the 25th anniversary where, to the surprise of many, the 6 most favorites are Schneider with 2,452 votes, Misaki with 1,776 votes, Kenzo with 1,626 votes, Hyuga with 1,408 votes, Mitsugi with 1,387 votes, and Tsubasa with 1,385 votes. There's also various surveys about the best match of the franchise, where many pick Nankatsu vs Toho, or the best couple, where the majority picks Tsubasa and Sanae. As we have already seen with Naturesa's nickname being the King of Football or Hyuga's nickname being First Tiger, there's various nicknames for characters like Schneider being the Young Emperor, Diaz being the Genius, Tsubasa being the Soccer no Moshigo, which means Heaven Sent Child of Soccer, Misaki and Pierre being known as the Artists of the Field, Mueller being the Phantom Keeper, Soda and Xiao being known as the Ace Killers, Santana being the Football Cyborg, etc. Captain Tsubasa 3109 Nichi Senkiroku is a special book released in the year 2003 that contains a lot of data of all the characters, matches and other things. This book stands up for having various information about the characters like their full names, date of birth, type of blood, stature, weight, dominant leg, and a graph that measures the players by the following parameters: technique, mentality, agility, physique, imagination, and tactics. There's also info about all of the matches up to that point, including formations and highlighted moments. A very interesting book. They should release one more up to date. Have you ever heard of the video game franchise of Touhou? You know, that indie shoot-'em up known for being a bullet hell? Well, there exists a fan game based on the Tecmo Captain Tsubasa video games, with the same mechanics, but with characters and history of Touhou. Many of the special shots in this game are truly insane. For example, there's this character that flies up to the moon writes her name, cuts the moon in half and then hits the ball. There's also a lot of remixes of not only music from Toho, but also themes from the Tecmo Captain Tsubasa games. For example, this. A very weird crossover, but a really good one if you ask me. According to an interview from the author of Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho, Yoshihiro Togashi, the record of the most named characters in the history of the Shonen Jump belongs to the Captain Tsubasa manga, where there are approximately over 240 named characters. Captain Tsubasa 2 Remake is a project being made by the developer Gaston Oliva, which tries to redo all of the Famicom video game of Captain Tsubasa 2 Super Striker, but with more modern and stylized graphics that seem straight out of the anime, more specifically the Shin OVAs, and also a more modern sound direction, where they include voices for the special techniques, a very cool project that deserves our support as a community. This is basically a joke in the Captain Tsubasa community, because if you pay attention reading all of the manga, the majority of tragic moments in the series are caused by car accidents. For example, the death of Hyuga's dad or Stein Clivord, or when Misaki gets hit by a truck trying to save his stepsister. The origin of the word truck gun is from a trope from isekai anime, where the majority of characters are run over by a truck, which they denominated Truck Gun, where they later are transported into a fantasy world. Everybody knows the case of Ryoma Hino, who has Japanese ancestry but decides to play for Uruguay, which is his natal country. But not everybody knows that, canonically, Wakabayashi is always being told that he could get the German citizenship and play for Germany. I think that he always refuses, which is ironic, because in the World Youth manga, we see him playing for Germany against the Netherlands. This generated various theories of players like Tsubasa or Aoi playing for Brazil and Italy respectively. Marty Friedman, the famous American guitarist that was part of the Megadeth band, who also now resides in Japan, has been involved in various animes for things like openings and endings of various series. One of these is the 2018 anime of Captain Tsubasa, which second ending has parts where a guitar is being played by the one and only Marty Friedman. Captain Tsubasa Stats is a page dedicated to recompile stats from all of the games and players from the manga to this very day, including information like the ones presented in the books but updated, and even information like fouls, apparitions, playtime, goals, assists, blocks, red or yellow cards, own goals, injuries, etc. They also include information from some Captain Tsubasa games like Rise of New Champions, a very arduous but very interesting job. Shinji and Nicolito are two legends of the Captain Tsubasa community. To summarize, Nicolito is the one that gets the raw pages of the manga in high quality, and Shinji is the one who translates it into English, with the best translation possible. As you probably already know, Captain Tsubasa is not very popular in English-speaking countries, and also the manga from World Youth onward have copyright problems that prevent them from releasing to the West. And to this we add that the anime don't advance all that much in the story. So the work that they put is amazing, scanning and translating all of the manga from the very beginning to the possible ending with really high quality. Also, a lot of translations from various languages are based on the English ones by Shinji. So basically, if it weren't for these two, the Captain Tsubasa community would be pretty much dead. So can we get a thank you Shinji and Nicolito in the comments? Similar to the previous case, Saizen is a group of fansubbers that recompiled and translated a lot of the classic Captain Tsubasa animes to English with a very good quality. Also, they did translate shows like the Hungry Heart anime. Their contribution is much appreciated, finally having the animes with English subtitles. Although there's one thing, they didn't translate the beginning of the Captain Tsubasa J anime. With that I mean they only translated the World Youth part. Nevertheless, their work and other fansubbers' work is admirable. Everybody knows that the Captain Tsubasa J anime has a very abrupt ending, finishing in the middle of the Asian qualifiers for the World Youth. The problem is that we don't know why it was cancelled. A lot of people argued that it could be due to low rating, which some theorized that maybe the audience didn't like the idea of a reboot of the series, and that's why they skipped 2 arcs to adapt the World Youth, which was the latest manga, and maybe that could bring more people to watch. Others theorized that it could be for the poor popularity that the franchise had at the moment, which would correlate with the World Youth manga cancellation. Or some argued that they reached the manga and they couldn't continue, but the truth is that we don't know why it was cancelled. This is basically a resource that Takahashi utilizes to nerf certain characters by injuries, leaving them weak or unable to play. The most well-known case of this is Genso Wakabayashi, given that during the manga he has a lot of injuries that leaves him unable to play or not giving his all. Another example would be Schneider and Mueller in World Youth. So as to not complicate his life, Takahashi decided to injure them so that it would be easier that they would get eliminated from the tournament by the teams that the script wanted to highlight. This is referred to the fact that in a lot of translations of Captain Tsubasa J, they refer to the Raiju shot as the Dragon shot.
Va más allá del tigre. Es mi... ¡Tiro del dragón!
Which is curious because the Dragon shot is a technique of Ryoma Hino. Every Captain Tsubasa fan had thought of how well the best 11 of Japan or the best international 11 will be. Well, Takahashi has given us the answer, and that will be, for Japan is a 4-4-2 formation where the goalkeeper is Genso, the defense is Soda, Jito, Mitsugi and Ishizaki, the middle fielders are Misaki, Tsubasa, Matsuyama and Aoi, and the forwards are Hyuga and Wakashimasu. The international team will be a 3-4-3 formation where the goalkeeper is, surprisingly, Espadas, the defenses are Xiao, Gentile and Karts, the middle fielders are Diaz, Mikael, Ribau and Clyboard, and the forwards will be Levin, Schneider and Natureza. Although there are some special mangas that have Japan facing an international all-star team that has other formations, but I won't talk about them because the video will be very long. Since it took a while to upload the video, I wanted to leave some extras. The first one is extending a little bit of the multiple names entry from the previous video, because I forgot about some interesting ones. The first one is that in a manga panel where Clyboard or Clyford appears, Takahashi writes his name as Cryford. A similar case is Mikael, where in Japanese his name is phonetically Mikaeru, but Takahashi writes it as Miguel in some Spanish magazines where said characters appear. Another case I wanted to add is that in the Road 2002 anime, some characters got their name changed probably to not have problems with real life players, such as the case of Fonseca being called Clemente or Davy being called Willem. This refers to the fact that, at least in the 1983 anime, due to licensing issues, a lot of translations changed the opening themes for one of their own. For example, there's the mythical theme of Supercampeones of the Latin American version.
muchos goles van a anotar.
In the European version, a lot of them had an intro that has the same melody as another change opening from Lupin III, as you can hear right now. Later, at least in the Latin American version, the opening of Moete Hero was finally translated, although with different instruments. This also happens nowadays, where the 2018 series opening was changed for a completely original one for some reason. This opening was adapted to match the visuals of the first opening, but they recycled the song for the second opening that doesn't synchronize with the visuals, which was a little bit disappointing.